Welcome back to our series on embracing midlife change. And this week we're talking about taking care of the small stuff. It's the little daily decisions and habits that may not seem that significant at the time, but over weeks, months, and even years have a big impact on our health and our happiness. And obviously, this is a big focus of the program, is our daily routine and our habits. So why is this small stuff so important? Duke University did a study and they found that 40% of the decisions that we make on a daily basis are actually based around habits. And we know that bad habits sneak in really easily, right? And they just have this kind of cumulative effect that wear us down and exhaust us. But good habits take a little bit of effort at the beginning, but end up having a really positive impact on our lives. So why? Why are habits so powerful? Let me show you. The first thing is what I call the trajectory, that small changes, just little changes over time lead to big results. So you might make just a little adjustment in your eating. And the first week, second week, third week, fourth week, fifth week, can you see that this little change of direction over time actually adds up to a really big result, all right? The second thing is what I call the cumulative effect. There's different ways of looking at this, right? But as you stick with it each day, each week, there's like a cumulative, like a snowball is another word. The snowball gets bigger the more it rolls down the hill. The longer you stick with a habit, the more powerful effect it has on your body, right? And on your biochemistry. And the third thing is the ripple effect, that a small change, just a little change, has a ripple effect through our lives in many ways that we may not have expected. So positive daily habits, taking care of the small things, actually is it's the keys to success. In fact, many interviews with very successful people actually uncover that it's their daily routine and daily habits that have led to their success. So that's why we're focusing it on this week. So habits save time. All right, taking care of these little things and having a system saves us time and mental energy, not having to make decisions all the time. They simplify life because we've got a process, we've got a system, we know what we're going to be doing. We're not just kind of reacting, right? We're proactive and planning, and they reduce decision fatigue, just constantly having to make decisions if we know what our plan is and what we're going to do in terms of all these little things that happen every day, then we're able to cope better and our energy levels are higher. So how do we change the small stuff? And remember, we talked about this, our mindset tool of tapping in to the positive energy. So whenever we are faced with making a change, we've kind of got a choice. So we're going to kind of use the stick. You should do that. That's wrong. You shouldn't do that. Okay, this kind of stick. Or the positive, like if I make that choice, I'm going to feel so much better. I know tomorrow I'll wake up and have more energy if I go to bed a bit earlier, for example. I know that I won't get that stomach, cramping that I get when I have that XYZ food. Use it as tap into that positive, because research shows it's much more motivating to find the positive energy than to use the put of punishment and the should do's and the must do's as a source of motivation. So that's the first thing, all right? The second thing is that we're going to shift gears. So it's kind of ironic that habits are automatic, but when they're the wrong habits, we're kind of stuck in this automatic way. We want to move from, remember, the automatic to adaptive, which means open to change. And then once we consolidate the new thing in our lives, all right, then that's a good habit. That's okay to be an autopilot, all righty? So with the little things each day, you're just going to start with one or two things, but I want you to ask yourself, what happens if I make this choice every time? Because remember we talked about that, the cumulative effect, all right, over time, that the little decisions each day add up to big results. So at the time, it may not seem that significant or important, right? But when you stop and think about it, hey, if I choose this every single time, what will be the end result? All of a sudden, things become crystal clear. You get a lot of clarity. So this is a really powerful question to ask yourself. I want to give you a few tips now on how to approach changing your habits. The first thing is do what feels right for you. All right, this is not about anyone else. I want you to tap in to your intuition, right? There's always lots of things we can be focusing on improving, but just listen to the inner voice on the inside, your inner compass, right? That's telling you, guiding you which things to focus on first and do what feels right. Because remember that positive energy, right? When you're coming from a point of view of this feels like a good thing to be focusing on, rather, I should do this, you're going to get better results. The second thing is, and this is really powerful, so pay attention, is create rituals. Now, a ritual is a cluster of little habits. All right. Now, what's so powerful about rituals is once you set it in place, you've got several good habits clustered together. So, for example, I have a morning ritual. I have a bedtime ritual, and then I have a ritual around when something stressful happens, right? So instead of kind of thinking of these things individually, I create a little ritual, or routine is another word. So in the morning, I have a very specific routine that I follow that kind of helps me get the day off to a really good start. The same with going to bed. I have certain things that I do 30 minutes before bed. What do I do when I get in bed? When do I stop looking at my phone or the iPad or the computer? It's a sort of routine, right? So you're clustering lots of healthy habits together. And then again with the stressful events, right? So something stressful happens, and this has helped me so much, especially something sudden, like you get a phone call, you get an email, you're feeling upset. I have a little ritual that I do, right? I don't have to think about it. I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to have a cup of green tea. I'm going to take a little L-theanine tablet. L-theanine is a natural amino acid that helps to calm our mind. It's just a very, very natural, very gentle, but it helps to bring down the stress and anxiety levels. I do the positive self-talk that we've talked about in the previous episode. Belle, relax, take a deep breath. You're going to come through this, right? And I've got different rituals for different degrees of stress. If I'm super stressed, then I've got my little ritual for that, okay? So can you see how powerful this is? Just by putting in a little bit of time to think about things and to plan, right? You've got a strategy. Ready? Okay, these little things, these little daily things that we're doing add up to big results. They help us get a better night's sleep, start the day well, have great energy levels, manage our stress, okay? So often it's the little things that make the biggest difference, all right? Really important. And the third thing is do a regular stock take. So what I mean by stock take is, and this is a terminology we used to use in the retail industry when I worked in cosmetics, is we're going to count up in the store, we'd count up all the stock that we had on the shelves and out the back in storage, and we'd match it to what we were meant to have, all right? And normally there's actually less than what we have than what should we have, and that's called shrinkage, all right? And there's lots of reasons for that. So what we want to do in our own life is do a little stock take, do a little count of what's going on, take a step back and go, hang on, how could I be kind of tweaking things a little bit? How could I be improving my daily routines? Maybe I need a new ritual, all right? Take some time, and that's why we're talking about it this week, to put aside some time to think about this stuff and make a little bit of a plan, alrighty? So trap to avoid is don't try to be perfect with this stuff, all right? I know I keep saying this, but we're our own worst enemy sometimes, and we really sabotage ourselves because we want everything to be just right. And that's not the real world. That's not life. Life has ups and downs. It has speed bumps and blips. Things don't go to plan. That's why these habits are important because once you establish them, it's a lot easier to come back to that, even when we get off track. So be gentle on yourself. Just recognize it's good to have a plan and a system and checklists and little rituals, but not to get stressed, if we're not always sticking to them or following them. That's normal, right? That's life. Alrighty, so the next steps this week, I want you to create a new ritual. All right, so I want you to think about something in your life that's important to you, right? And think about how can I actually create a cluster of little habits and make a little ritual around this, whatever it might be. It might be that when you get home from work, you always feel tired and tempted to go to the chocolate, right? Or the biscuits or cookies or whatever it might be, or the chips. And so you think to yourself, okay, instead of kind of approaching this as a simple decision of yes or no, I am or am not going to eat it, let's create a little ritual of what I do when I get home, or as a strategy for not going to the chocolate, all right? And there's lots of ways to do this. Have a little think. It's amazing how the answers will come to you as you spend just a little bit of time thinking about it. So create a new ritual this week and focus on making it a habit in your life, a daily habit, because remember that cumulative effect, right? As you stick with it, even just one little ritual like this can be transformational, all right, inside and out. And remember, these little habits, they might seem small and they might seem insignificant, but over time are actually the biggest determinator of our happiness and health. All right, if you can kind of get hold of this, you'll be amazed at what a difference it makes to your motivation, right? And your commitment to sticking with it. And hey, you're already here and doing the program. So I know that you're really committed to making every day count in your life and having lots of healthy habits. So I hope that you've picked up a few little tips in today's episode. Next week, we're going to be talking about facing the big stuff in life, the real big changes that can really throw you for a six, that can really upset your life and get you off track. And I've got some really powerful thoughts to share with you to help you get and navigate this phase of your life, all right, successfully. Alrighty, so have a great week. Leave me a little comment below about what ritual you're going to develop for yourself. I would love to know and I would love to hear from you, and I'll see you next week. Play the next episode now or view the full series. For menopause nutrition plans and coaching support, join my YouTube members area. You'll find the link below this video.